Our guest today is a guy named Barry Jantz, and he is one of the most respected political minds in San Diego. He's very well known, very well respected by left, right, and middle. He's done such a fantastic job. He's a consultant. What you will really like about him is decade and a half before Bruin, before there was even Heller, before all this was happening, before Peruta, Barry Jantz was a warrior on the La Mesa City Council, attempting to get La Mesa to issue CCWs, basically shall issue CCWs to La Mesa residents through their police chief. That's what he was fighting when he was elected official. I'm having him on today to talk about Nora Vargas. She is a supervisor, San Diego County Board supervisor, who decided that even though she just won her race, that she's not going to take office in January, and she's not going to have herself sworn in. This segment is sponsored by Cargo. Cases and rugged gear outfitters in El Cajon. Go to cargostores.com. They're at 423 Broadway, El Cajon. Cargo is a Byrna dealer now. It looks a lot like a firearm, but it's not. It shoots kinetic rounds to change the behavior of an attacker. That's basically solid plastic about the size of a paintball, and they hurt, but it's non-lethal. Go visit them at their store in El Cajon, and you can actually try them at their Byrna range. Use code GOR for 10% off of their website, or mention Gun Owners Radio or SDCGO at their store. They have all kinds of cool gear. Check them out. Go see them today. And you know what? How many more shopping days till Christmas? Like 2, 1.5. So go on down, check them out.
That's it. Great gift.
So without further ado, Barry Jantz. Hey, Barry.
Hey, Michael. How you doing?
Good, man.
How you doing?
Very good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I wanted to talk to you about the county board, specifically Nora Vargas. You actually wrote a really good analysis on the mechanics of what happens, because this is extremely unique for somebody to overwhelmingly win their election and then doesn't seemingly have any kind of controversy that would rise to the occasion of forcing them to step down, but she's deciding that she's not going to be sworn in January and fill out the next 4 years of her term. This is pretty unprecedented, right?
I called it unprecedented. And by the way, thanks for reminding me there's only 1.5 shopping days till Christmas. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I'll send you my list.
But it is definitely unprecedented. I don't think I've ever heard of it before. I certainly have heard of it elected and then dying before they could take office or something like that. But this is really kind of out there for this to happen. And no one really has a clear understanding of why.
And I want to talk why in a little bit, but first I want to talk about the mechanics. You wrote a really great article on sdrostra.com that talked about the kind of mechanics so that people can understand, the civic. Give them a little bit of a civics lesson. So she's not stepping down exactly. She's just deciding that, hey, this term I won, I'm not going to fulfill it. So what talk about the mechanics of that? Like who, how do they replace her? Who's in charge? She was the chair. So what happens then? Talk about the mechanics. She was the chair of the board of supervisors. What happens? How do they pick a new person? Like what are the mechanics of this, since it's so unprecedented and so odd? Walk us through kind of, what now?
Well, what now? First, either a special election or an appointment to fill the vacancy by the Board of Supervisors. And that's really first step. They will, Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Blossom Reamer will both get sworn in January 6th. And it's really kind of the first order of business. Well, we have a vacancy that's starting right now because Nora Vargas is not getting sworn in at the same time they do, right? So they have an immediate vacancy they need to address. So the first thing will be to direct the county staff, whether they want to do a special election or they want to consider an appointment. They may direct staff to start the process. They may have, a public hearing on with the public coming in and saying what they think. But that'll start the process. I truly believe, based on the Nathan Fletcher example a couple of years ago, that they will opt for a special election. And what's so really kind of embarrassing about this situation, I don't know if it's embarrassing to any of us or the public, but really that the cost of an election was just held when Nora Vargas won overwhelmingly.
Right.
And so now they're going to have to redo it, right? So sometimes I guess that's the cost of a representative government, right? You got to go through these processes, but we won't even get into that. But the other thing is then, what do they do about selecting a chair of the Board of Supervisors? Now, Nora Vargas, she's been chair for 2 years. She wasn't planning on, even if she had taken office as planned, she wasn't going to be chair again. It was probably going to be Tara Lawson-Remer with 3 votes, including Vargas's, to ensure that happens, meaning 3 Democrats on the board. We have a 2-2 board now. But understood, it's a nonpartisan board, right? But let's face it, everything is political and everything is partisan when it comes down to it. So Joel Anderson and Jim Desmond, Republicans, Tara Lawson-Remer and Monica Montgomery Steppe, Democrats. So that makes it really interesting on what happens with an officer election. I was suggesting in my article on sdroster.com that maybe it's going to be like Lebanon, a coalition government of some sorts until this can all be figured out. But we'll see what happens.
What is that? What would that mean? A coalition government? What exactly?
Well, that would be unprecedented too. I think they probably have to have a chair because there's board committee assignments, there's appointments to SANDAG, MTS, multiple JPAs, Joint Power Agreement boards, and things like that. There's appointments to other regional agencies, state and national agencies. Remember, this is one of the biggest counties in the United States. You can't go with having those appointments made. And to a certain extent, you need a chair to derive the process. So, but are an Anderson and a Desmond as 2 Republicans going to just give it to Tara Lawson-Remer just because she wants it, vice versa, right? So it'll be interesting to see whether they find some solution that might, as I suggest, a creative solution. And well, let's find a way to co-chair this leadership until we have a 5th board member.
Interesting.
There's been vacancies on boards and city councils and school boards before, but to start the very first meeting, the organizational meeting, when you elect a chair, and to have someone who was the chair not even showing up, just saying, I'm not going to take the oath of office, that's what's so strange about it.
Yeah, it makes it really difficult. Now, first off, her district is extremely Democrat. Or it's at very least, it is a safe Democrat seat, right? So
there's there's twice as many Democrats as there are Republicans in this district. This is District 1. It's the South County District. In fact, there's more declined estates by 4 percentage points or so than there are Republicans. So yes, it's a very safe Democratic seat. And those that are declined estate tend not to be that way because, like in East County, we're used to people being declined estate because they're very conservative, and the Republican Party is often not conservative enough for them, but they will still vote for a conservative. In this case, the declined estates, the independents, if you will, tend to swing more to the left. So it's a very difficult district to compete for a Republican. But if it's a special election, low turnout.
Which favors Republicans usually, but it would be as big a story to elect a Republican as it is that she stepped down after winning an election. You know what I mean? Like, it's highly unlikely that there's going to be a Republican, or it might even be. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's highly unlikely that there's going to be even, someone that's close to the center. I mean, it's a pretty extreme left district. I don't, and where I'm going with this is, it seems like the 2 Republicans, Joel Anderson and Jim Desmond, it behooves them to push this process off as long as possible and not rush to get a 5th person in that seat. Am I wrong?
Well, okay, sure, and this is quite frankly the way it was looked like as well in the Nathan Fletcher situation. It wasn't legitimately thought that even in a special election with a low turnout, that in another district that was strongly Democratic, that ultimately Republican would win. So Desmond and Anderson 2 years ago had more power than they'd ever had, being in a 2-2 situation for a brief amount of time. So it's kind of back to that. One player is different, and Monica Montgomery Stepp instead of Nora Vargas, but it's still a 2-2 makeup. So yes, there is a thought there. And this is, by the way, a special election will take approximately 6 months, if not a little bit longer, once the dust settles on what they're going to do. So that's 6 months where Desmond and Anderson, as the Republicans on the board, have a lot more clout than they would have in a situation down the road. Now, the Republican Party, of course, will argue that if it's the right Republican, big name, high ID Republican, especially, say Chula Vista, the largest city in the district, is about 46% of the district. So, of course, names have been floated. The Republican Party will argue that if it's the right Republican, then they can compete in a very low turnout situation.
You're talking about the mayor of Chula Vista, John McCann, is already kind of hinted he might be interested in running, and the city of Chula Vista is 46%, and he won by at least 50%. I don't remember the exact number, but he got 60% of the vote or something like that. So 60% of 46% of that district, he could at least have a strong showing in a low turnout special election. Is that kind of the analysis there?
It's certainly a strong showing, certainly a credible showing. Whether it's enough. Of course, the Democratic Party, Labor, will be doing polling all through a special election, and they will be ensuring the turnout is as high as it's possible among Democrats, so nothing like that happens. So, back to your question. I'm thinking probably a Desmond and an Anderson, two Republican supervisors, will view it as, okay, ultimately in 6 months, are we obviously going to have a 3-2 board Republican? I'm not sure they're looking at the world that way, but
it
remains to be
seen. Plan. But maybe somebody they could work with. Is there anybody on the left or any Democrats that you can think of? If you had to pick 2 or 3 possibilities, what 2 or 3 names would you throw out there?
That's someone the Republicans can work with. Sure.
Well, actually, no, not some of the Republicans work with. Who would you say are the top 3 names that Democrats are probably going to look at and run?
Yeah, well, names are being thrown about. We certainly have the city of Chula Vista. There's John McCann we mentioned, who's a Republican. There's Democrats on that board. In National City as well, some names have been touted. But I think a big name Democrat is probably a contender, and so therefore, Councilmember Moreno from the city of San Diego, because
Vivian
it's the
Moreno.
city of San Diego, is Vivian Moreno. That would be a big name. Now, here's an interesting one that's been brought up, and I don't know that he's said anything yet, but it's Assembly Member David Alvarez. Keep in mind, he's been in office for a few years. You get 12 years between the Assembly and the Senate. So someone like that, especially if you want to be closer to home and want to be in a really high profile position for 8 years, when you're only going to have that long or even longer in the legislature now, is it time to look at county supervisor? So don't be surprised if a big name like that comes into play. Then all of a sudden you have a Democrat with name ID already, significant name ID, in portions of the district, if not a lot of the district, running for that seat.
Yeah, boy, what a mess. I got to tell you, I don't pay attention to all 58 counties in California, but I spent a lot of time in Orange County paying attention, and Riverside paying attention, and San Bernardino paying attention, even a little bit of Imperial and a little bit of LA. No county politically is as interesting as San Diego. It's unbelievable the things that happen here, from people stepping down and people, having weird alliances and running against each other. This is politically, I think, the most interesting county in California and possibly the entire United States. It's crazy the things that happen here.
When Nora Vargas made her announcement a couple of days ago, I had it posted up on social media, kind of the word I use on occasion, wowza, with two
Wowza.
Z's,
Yeah.
wowza with two Z's. And there were some folks that used to work in politics or got their start, or at least cut their teeth in politics in San Diego. Now they're elsewhere in the state. And some of them, weighed in and said, the one thing I really miss is San Diego politics because it's always so interesting.
So
In a way, we're down here, and sometimes we feel like we're ignored, right? But we are our own microcosm in San Diego County.
Yeah.
With LA to the north, that's the behemoth that it is to the north, and that's us being our own kind of microcosm here. With a different nation to the south, and the ocean to one side, and the mountains to the other, and then LA to the north. So we kind of are, in a way, a little our own country. When I said coalition government,
Yeah.
Where two parties come together and try to govern something, there's a lot of nations out there that do that. Well, San Diego County is larger than some of those nations. Okay? So, in a way, we are our own little nation.
Now, I don't think that I don't think a real possibility is that they would appoint somebody in any way. I don't think that they'll appoint somebody and then say, hey, you can't run, but just sit here and fill the seat until we get somebody. I don't think they'd appoint somebody and say, yes, you can run. It doesn't seem like that is going to go over with the voters. It doesn't seem like that is a good idea for anybody. What are your thoughts on them appointing and then doing a special election later?
Sure. And I think that is an alternative. I think they can appoint someone as an interim position until the special election's held. They could have done that when Monica Montgomery step one. And that was a primary and a general process, with Amy Reichert making it into the runoff against Monica Montgomery step in a pretty left-leaning district there. So that took some time, and they did have the option of appointing someone into an interim position. And you could technically do that and say, hey, we're doing it with the understanding that you're not going to run, because they don't want to give someone that title of appointed incumbent that they can use in the special election. That's been done before, but it's been quite a few years. I think the last time the County Board of Supervisors did something like that was 1983 when Roger Hedgecock won mayor 2 years through his term on the Board of Supervisors, and they appointed someone who agreed not to run, but they appointed that someone for 2 years. Okay, this is a 4-year term. How do you justify not letting the voters decide?
Yeah.
And of course, the main justification would be the significant cost of the special election. But this isn't a little city. This is the county of San Diego.
Yeah.
So
3.5
I just
million
think
people.
I think it's problematic. If the Republicans on the board found someone, a Democrat, say that that was palatable enough for them to work with for a time, well, the Democrats on that board are that person's going to be not palatable to them. So I think it's very difficult to think there's going to be any appointment or maybe even an interim appointment.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the reasons. And this is pure speculation. Nobody knows why she's doing this except for her and maybe a couple of people around her, but no one actually knows the answer. This is just us completely speculating on some of the guesses out there, some of the things that have been written. So we're speculating on speculation. So
we are.
Take this all with a grain of salt. But I think
everything's been put out. About how something like so out there. If she had decided, 8 months ago, I'm not going to run for re-election, that might have been a shocker to folks, but it wouldn't have been this kind of shocker. So everyone thinks, okay, there's got to be something else in the frying pan on this. Now her reason stated in writing was that she was, it's not, and technically, as I said in the article, it's not a resignation. She's filling out her term. She's just refusing to take the seat.
Right.
So let's call it a departure. But her reason for doing that, he said, is for personal safety and security reasons. Well, that's not saying, hey, I've got personal family issues. That's not saying I have health issues. And she has had some health issues, which she's been open about, right? But she wasn't saying that. She wasn't saying anything like that for personal safety and security reasons. What does that suggests something she's not comfortable with? She's actually afraid of. And so, of course, everyone is speculating, and you said it, speculation upon speculation. We're speculating about speculation. I mean, I even heard someone thought it had something to do with drones. So
Well,
that's how
well,
crazy.
let's kind of let's go one by one and just kind of talk
Sure.
about the possibility. First off, I think one thing that everyone agrees on is that the reason she gave about personal security and that sort of thing, no one is buying that. There's not one person out there that actually thinks that she's deciding not to take office because she's worried about her personal security. I don't think anybody out there is buying that. It is clearly an excuse. There's nothing that justifies it. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, the only thing I would say to that, and it's not, I guess everybody has to define what they feel is their own safety and security, and she may have a very low threshold. but
Yeah.
but
Well,
so how can we question if someone feels unsafe? I guess they feel unsafe, even if the rest of us might feel safe. So I don't but yeah, let's put that one aside, and then it
yeah,
goes
let's
to
put
the
that one
health
aside.
issues. It goes to the health issues. I mentioned that one. She's been open about them. If this were an extension of that, I think it would be. She'd say, her it's health.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be
you
an
know,
easy out. That if she said, "Hey, it's my health," if it really were her health, and that would be an easy out. I think everybody would understand that. No one would, there wouldn't be any
yeah.
conspiracy theories. That would be an easy out. So I think that her health can be ruled out too. It's probably not a reason.
Now another obvious thing that folks are bringing up because it's been in the news, and that is a top administrator of the county, Michael Vu, who wanted to be chief administrative officer. He's filed a claim with the county,
Mm-hmm.
about what tactics, and he's claiming that two supervisors, Lawson Rimmer and Nora Vargas, were involved in some what he says are shady reasons because for race reasons and things like that. So of course he's teed up a claim. We'll see how that goes. That could turn into a lawsuit. Some people think that could be embarrassing to her. But as Scott Lewis mentioned in Voice of San Diego, which I link from my article this morning, it's just not plausible that you would run from your own tail in advance of that really getting serious at all. It's only a claim with the county right now. It's having turned into a lawsuit. People don't, try to get in front of things like that. And it's a civil lawsuit. This is not criminal,
It's not criminal. She's not going to go
in
to
any
jail
way
for
at
it.
this point. Yeah. So that's not really plausible.
And even so, if
Uh,
there is some kind of lawsuit like that, he pointed out, and very intelligently, I thought, that if you're in office, the last thing you do is resign. That's actually a very important chip that you have in your back pocket to negotiate with if you have done something, that you're guilty of, whether civil or criminal. The last thing, so there's a lot of protection for elected officials. So, it'd be odd for her to
sure.
resign so quickly and give up that chip, right? Or is that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's very much the case. The thought is, okay, is there some criminal investigation out there, and that's not even the Michael Booth thing, something else that no one knows about yet, and the DA has gone and said you resign, and we'll make the charges and less for you, but. I mean, very typically, someone has caught wind of some kind of criminal investigation like that going on. It's just not completely in the dark where no one knows about it except the DA and who's ever being investigated. So
Okay,
that's not
so
plausible. That's not
on
plausible.
on that, I kind of have my own little theory that kind of builds on that. If you've been watching things happen over the last year, it's become fairly obvious that Tara Lawson Raymer and Nora Vargas do not get along. They're not entirely happy with each other. I don't know how to most accurately phrase it, but they seem to butt heads a lot. One of the more obvious ones was when Vargas, as chair, got up and left in the middle of a meeting and wouldn't allow Tara to pass some of the things that she had on the agenda right in the middle of her election. And those two don't appear to be getting along real well. And her statement, Tara's statement, I want to read it real quickly. Statement from Vice Chair Lawson Raymer, and this is on that she issued after Nora Vargas left. I greatly appreciate Chair Vargas' services to the service to the county and our community, and I hope she finds resolution to the challenges with which she is grappling. Then she goes on to say, as Vice Chair of the County Board of Supervisors, let me assure you that the work in the new direction of the county will continue moving forward. We'll continue advancing our agenda, et cetera, et cetera. I thought that piece in that first sentence, I hope she finds resolution to the challenges with which she's grappling. That's not that's not very that's not real warm and fuzzy. And I'm wondering if she has found something. I'm wondering if she somehow has constructed this. You know, Tara Lawson Raymer, she's fairly well connected on the left side of the political spectrum, and I'm wondering if somehow she uncovered something or she somehow is forcing her out. Totally speculation. I have no idea, but I know that statement by Tara Lawson Raymer it felt like there was a hidden message behind it, and maybe I'm just maybe I've just seen too many episodes of West Wing or something like that. But
I know that maybe that could be House of Cards, but
yeah, House of Cards.
So
yeah.
I guess without even thinking through that more and having something substantiated, I think it's just if you see it as, and I don't see it as warm and fuzzy either, it's being professional, cordial, kind. It's not being, you've been such a champion with me as we've partnered on the Board of Supervisors. There's nothing like that, right? So this is, by the way, this is reflective of differences within the Democratic Party, often between those who are way staunchly more pro-labor and those who sometimes take a little bit of a stand against labor. And I think that, Nora Vargas has done that. I mean, she, when it came to the selection of the chief administrative officer, the Board of Supervisors got kind of in a pickle over that. That labor was not particularly happy. Labor was mailing into Vargas's district. But of course, this was months ago too. She could have said, okay, I'm not even going to run for reelection because this is not worth it.
Right.
It's not. So that one also, that she's just can't stomach the attacks from those on her own side. Forget about the right. You're always going to deal with those, right? But those on her own side, she can't stomach anymore. So that one's, I'm not sure it's plausible either, because she was facing that. And to think that she can't stand people screaming at the Board of Supervisors, that happened all through COVID.
Yeah.
As it transitioned from Nathan Fletcher's chair to Nora Vargas's chair, that was happening on a regular basis. So she's used to those sorts of things. So there's something else obviously is in the frying pan. I'm not sure we'll ever know. I'm not sure we'll ever know.
I think you might be right. We may never know. One of the more extreme ones that I wanted to just shoot down and pretty quickly, she just helped pass this super sanctuary county thing, where basically she said we're not going to cooperate with federal efforts to deport illegal aliens in San Diego. And she got it passed. She was she wasn't the only one that voted for it, obviously, but she championed the thing and really pushed it through. And that is a big issue for her. And the idea that there's kind of been this idea that, well, now that Trump has been elected, she's been embarrassed by the reaction from the future Trump administration, or she's afraid that they're going to come and arrest her or whatever. None of that is. First off, I think she's probably more proud than ever. If she were to stay in office, this would be a hill that she would absolutely climb to die on. I mean, this would make her a hero. And there's no world, there's no universe out there where the Trump administration would arrest someone on the county board of supervisors for passing a regulation for that. You know what I mean? It's just none of that makes sense. It's such a conspiracy theory.
Right. Now, considering that vote took place after Trump won the election, it wasn't like, oh,
Right.
we voted on it and then Trump surprisingly won. What do we do now? This has been since Trump won the election. In a way, I saw it as no different than some of the things Gavin Newsom is doing to try to rush certain legislation through special session stuff, before Trump takes office. This is a district, we described the district earlier. This is a district that Nora Vargas is in where that position she took and championed on Sanctuary County that does not hurt her in any way, shape, or form. She can fundraise on it. She can, if she wants to parlay something like that into future office after she would be termed out in 4 years, if had she taken office, she'd be able to do that. So
Yeah.
I think the reason that's come up is because it's the most recent controversial vote, right prior to her announcement. So of course, people are going to focus on, well, something's happened since that vote, right? Something's happened since that vote. Now, since it is a recent vote, is she getting, potentially is she getting the kind of threat she never received before because of that vote? I think everyone on the supervisors has alluded to getting threats over the years, including significant ones during COVID. So it's just another thing you throw in there and say, okay, but is it really plausible? I don't think so.
Well, I think the only thing we know is that we may not ever know. Something might come out in the next couple months. Something may never come out. Tends to have a short attention span and a short memory in the political world. So it's very probable that by February, no one will even remember who Nora Vargas was.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to.
Michael, as I pointed out in the article, her reason will come out, or it won't come out. but either way, that doesn't fill a seat on the Board of Supervisors. It doesn't fill a vacancy on the Board of Supervisors. And that's why I'm really focused on, what are the nuts and bolts to what happens next? Yeah. Not only with that vacancy, but how are they going to govern from an officer position at the Board of Supervisors come January 6th?
The fact that she had that easy out of the health, I really am voting that there's a method to her reasoning. It's going to come out. I think there's something brewing.
I hope
it would have been
is,
too easy to just said health and let it go.
It's too interesting to not come. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Just because the part of me that loves gossip columns. That's
right.
I hope something comes out. Gosh,
there's
already
got to be a reason.
It's so juicy as it is. But Barry, thank you so much.
With the last thing, her message was so kind of out there and quick that I don't think staff got a good review of it because there was a couple words missing in it. So, and that was discussed as well, that a lot of her own staff didn't even know that was going to take place. So, is she using wording that wasn't really vetted by staff? And they're saying, well, what are you saying here? Because people are going to think, what do you mean safety and security? So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, which thickens the plot for sure.
It does.
Barry, where can people read your article?
It's SD as in San Diego, SD Rostra, ROSTRA.com, SDRostra.com.
Barry, thank you so much. Barry Jantz, appreciate everything you do. Have so much respect for you and your opinion and everything that you've done in your political life. And thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Michael. All right, take care.